Hey, 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 everyone. Happy Tuesday. I didn't get to be here last week because I was busy in Nashville at two conferences. Last Tuesday, I was at the Spark Media Conference for Christian podcasters, and it was glorious. It was just such a good time to connect with other podcasters and hear what God is doing just in podcasting as a ministry. And then going for 2 more days to the National Religious Broadcasters, the NRB, which is a gathering of Christian communicators who basically are either doing TV, radio, podcasting, blogging, just everybody that's anybody in that world, films, TV, radio, podcasts, blogging. It was amazing. And we had some really good times with some of our authors that were being represented there by different publicists, and our Stephen Black with First Stone Ministries, they always have a booth there and have just great content. And I got a chance to just hang out with June Hunt a little bit, Hope from the Heart. She's just one of my favorite people. So it was just a great week, and I'm glad to be back home. My husband's glad to have me home too. And I just am excited about talking about children's books today, because that is such a huge area to think about. A lot of times we don't think, wow, would my message actually lend itself to a children's book? And first I want to share some stats with you, because I don't think we understand the impact of the whole ministry of books for children. So it is a $2.6 billion industry, and getting kids into books while they're young, even before they can read, is an essential part of childhood development. And parents who read to their children just are able to give them a lifelong love of reading. I see that in my husband. His mom was reading to him way early in the game, and that has just made him someone who just devours literature. And I love to see that. I didn't have that as a young person. And so the idea of pouring it in while they're young, so that then they do the same with their kids. And we love at Redemption Press to publish quality children's books, offering services. There's lots of different steps in the whole children's book process, from content, editing, illustrations. All of those areas are important. And, you might think it really, for, 300 or 500 words, who needs editing? Well, that is going to be a topic we are going to talk about in just a moment, because we have one of our children's book editors with us today. Her name is Robin, and she is, not only does our managing editor rave about her work, but so do the authors that are on the receiving end of her coaching and editing. So Robin, welcome to our Facebook Live today.
Hi, Athena. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You bet. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for Redemption Press.
Let's see. Well, I am Canadian. I live in Ontario, Canada, where it happens to be snowing at the moment. I have 4 adult sons. I have 4 cats. And I've just always loved books and words as far back as I can remember. And for Redemption Press, I edit picture books. And that involves 2 rounds of editing and often illustration suggestions.
Nice. So, okay, I have a couple questions that I would love to ask you and have you weigh in on.
Okay.
What top three things does an author need to know about writing a children's book?
I would say the first thing is to know your audience and expectations today. That just that term children's book covers a lot of territory,
Right.
because there's everything from board books to picture books, earlier easy readers, chapter books, novels for middle grade and young adult. So it's a wide spectrum there. You need to know your audience, and you need to know, as I said, expectations today, not the way picture books were written, 25 years ago. So even though I still have picture books from when my sons were little that I love, picture books today can be quite different from those older ones. So it's important to know that the age group that you're, gearing your project towards, and some elements such as what the focus should be for. I'm talking picture books now specifically. The focus needs to be on the child in the story, not any adults in the story. So especially for narrative picture books today, usually there's some sort of problem or challenge that the child or the child representative in the story is faced with. And that character is the one that needs to address and solve the problem or issue, not parents or other adults swooping in and providing the answers, which might have been a style many, many years ago, but not anymore. So I think that's an important first point. Second point is, especially again for picture books, we're focusing on that right now, is to understand that the artwork tells half the story. Often I'll receive picture book manuscripts that are quite long and entail too much narrative. There's too much narration and description going on in the text. It's important to remember this is a picture book, and the art isn't there just to decorate the story or to replicate what's been said in the story, but to support it by telling more or adding to what is in the story. Often there can be artwork that tells an alternative or extra story going on in the background.
Right.
So that's important to keep in mind. And keeping that in mind helps you cut the word count. Because again, picture books today are shorter than they often were in the past. That sweet spot for picture book text is about 500 to 600 words for a narrative. Nonfiction picture books tend to be a bit longer, maybe 1,000 words. But keeping in mind how much the illustrations can help tell the story will help writers trim their word count and keep it down to what's expected and wanted today in the picture book market. And I'd say third is that it's very important to respect the child audience and to understand that they can intuit any meaning or message in the story. That your story doesn't have to come out and explicitly announce a message. That might have been a style long ago. It isn't anymore. So we need to respect that audience and know that they can absorb the story and the meaning and work it through in their own minds instead of pounding home a lesson.
Right.
Nobody wants these didactic types of stories anymore, really.
So do you find that the questions at the back of a children's book where the parent can engage the child on what they got out of it or if they see it, what their perspective is that they didn't used to do that, seems like, in children's books.
Well, not all picture books do that today. I see that more in nonfiction or that type of sort of narrative nonfiction where there's a blend of a nonfiction topic, but it's told through a story format. For example, like learning about the rainforest or certain animals or things like that. I don't see questions all that often in just straight narrative picture books, but I suppose an author could add them, and certainly parents or the other adults reading the picture books, such as teachers or librarians, could use them. But better to do that to evoke some discussion than to explicitly announce that there's a message in the story.
Exactly. Exactly. So, what would you say is the biggest mistake that authors make in writing a children's book?
I had to had to really think about this one because I thought only one biggest mistake.
Oh, you can give me two or three if you want.
No, but I think the one that I see frequently is when the writers don't understand the difference between real life and story. Often picture book writers, new picture book writers, are prompted to write a story based on something that happened in real life. And they want to include all the events and all the characters in the order that it actually happened in real life. And because this happened with their son or daughter, then the characters have to be named after them and the illustrations must look like them and so on. And it's important to understand the difference between real life and story. That real life doesn't always have nice narrative arcs and a tidy ending where a problem is solved within, 28 pages or something. It's important to understand that a picture book story needs to, if it's based on real life, needs to take that material and shape it into narrative that is satisfying for the audience. And that's both the child being read to and the adult reading that. So it's different from real life. And often I'll have to coach writers on, removing this or that, or compressing this, or eliminating certain characters because they don't contribute to or benefit the story. So I'd say that's one of the biggest issues.
Well, it sounds to me like a new author coming in as a first-time author of a children's picture book needs to hold it lightly and be willing to take that kind of advice, because I'll bet that could be tough for someone who really kind of had the idea that it should be based on their child and look like
Yes.
and all of those
Yes.
things.
Yes. Often also picture book writers, if they're not author illustrators, if they're just writers, they will have a certain image in their minds of what the illustration should look like. And I think we all do that if we're telling a story. But that isn't always necessarily what's best for the book. And if you're going through, a press like Redemption Press or other publishers, they might have a different artist in mind, a different vision for how the book will work. So getting too particular about details of illustrations, such as, she has, curly pigtails tied with polka dot red ribbons and so on, is too specific. So art notes should be included in a picture book manuscript only really if they're explaining something that isn't self-evident from the story and is important to the story. So it can be very challenging to share that picture book, story and inspiration with the wider world and kind of let it go out there. But that's how it'll become a real book and appreciated by, hopefully by a wide audience.
Yeah. Okay, so my last question for you is, what are the 10 elements of our editing process for a children's picture book?
Okay. I had to write this down. So I understand the 10 steps for picture books involves what aspects of the book are taken into consideration as the editing process proceeds. First, the title. It's important to have a good title that's evocative, memorable, intriguing, engaging. What theme is the book covering? Is it covering a popular theme for the age group for picture books, such as families, new babies, worries that a young child that age would have, feelings, friendships, pets, those sorts of themes? We don't want to go into themes that are inappropriate for that age group. What about the character, the main character of the story? Again, which should be a child or a child's substitute, such as an animal character. What is the character learning about themselves or about God, and so on? The narrative plot. As long as it's a narrative picture book as opposed to a concept book, the story should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Some sort of inciting incident that provokes some kind of change from the status quo, leading up through the middle, where there's a problem or a challenge and then a resolution of that. The setting, we want to have some sort of setting so the story is not in a void, a setting that benefits or enhances, supports the story. As I said earlier, consider the audience and the voice of the story. Are you writing in a voice that's accessible to young children, as opposed to using structures that are beyond their comprehension, sentence structures, or just using a tone that sounds too adult for a child to relate to? Keep in mind, though, that it's perfectly fine to include big words in picture books because they are vocabulary stretching. And they can be fun to roll off the tongue. The child learns to repeat them. And the child will learn the meanings of these longer or bigger words from the context of the story, from illustrations, and through discussion with the adult. The book should be great to read aloud. Make sure that when you're writing, you actually read aloud your picture book, because that's how it functions in the real world. Think about the rhythm of your language, or if it's in rhyme, is the rhyme perfect? Is the meter as perfect as possible? As I mentioned earlier, think about the relationship between the words and the pictures, that the pictures tell at least half that story. That's why they're called picture books. Right? They're not short stories that would belong in magazines. They're a different type of a genre. The ninth step is considering the physical structure of the picture book. How many pages it will have, which pages are used to tell the story, which might be used for other purposes, such as copyright page, and so on. And finally, the ending. Match the tone of your ending to the tone of your book. It's often very effective to bring a story full circle and either suggest something is going to continue again, or something is being completed that was introduced at the beginning. So those would be the 10 elements or steps involved in the editing process.
I love that. That is so, I used to just think people came up with cute little, poems or little stories, and that was all there was to it. And not at all. There's so much more to it if you really want it to engage and to get traction so that people enjoy it, share it, and, it really makes an impact then. So it's definitely lots of intentional, decision to
writing a picture book is deceptively challenging. Often writers will think it's just a picture book. It's only 400 words. How hard can it be? As hard, if not harder, than writing a novel, because you have to compress that story into very limited space, and every word really needs to count. The picture books are really more like poems than novels, and every word needs to count.
Ooh, amen. That's a good way to wrap up our time together. Robin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Great. Thanks again, Athena.
All righty. So now we are going to introduce you all to Stacy Light, author of Good One, God. So let me just share a little bit about the book before I bring her on the screen. And I love this storybook, just saying. It's a story about a girl named Kelsey who's going fishing for out in the Gulf of Mexico with her granddad and big brother Zach. And she's like so excited. She cannot wait to go. And the beauty of a great blue heron prompts granddad to say, "Good one, God," which Kelsey's eager then to find her own site that she can praise God for. And the bay is bursting with God's good creations, turtles, fish, birds, the salty waves themselves. But with each amazing miracle of nature, Zach beats her to the punch. So the question is, will Kelsey get her chance to thank God before it's time to head home? And in this fun story with lively illustrations, they're beautiful illustrations. you can join the author in bringing the joy of God's creation into everyday lives of children. So welcome, Stacy, to our Facebook Live for today. So nice to have you, my friend.
Hello. So good to be here.
Yes. Well, as someone, as you know, I've never written anything for children, but I am always looking for evidence of God's faithfulness, his goodness. So, wow. When I first heard about your story and knew we were in process with it, it was like, I love this. Is like a children's pint-sized version of what I'm always trying to instill in adults. So,
Yes.
It's been delightful for me to follow along the way and watch God do his thing with the book since it's been out, and super excited for you.
It's been so much fun. Every day has been so much fun.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us how you found Redemption Press and chose to publish with us.
So God had a hand in that completely. I had a college friend, Christine Trimp, who was beginning to have a journey with Redemption Press. And we were Facebook friends and we were talking. And I had shared with her that I had begun the writing process of my children's book. And she said, "You're kidding me. I'm writing a book as well." And so we were just overjoyed that we were both going through this process. And she said, "I just signed up to do a virtual writers conference because it was during COVID." And I said, that would be perfect because nobody could go anywhere. And I didn't know of anything around us that I could get involved in. And so I said, this is perfect. So I joined in right away and did the She Writes for Him conference. And so I met these wonderful people in the publishing industry, speakers and writers and editors, and just so many people that work in different areas of the publishing industry that were wonderful not only to network with, but just helped me along the way to guide me throughout this path, really, truly, because I didn't know how to navigate the publishing world, which was part of the reason that I waited so long to do this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you don't know what you don't know, and it's intimidating because
it is.
There's so much out there.
Yeah.
So tell us about the publishing process, kind of the editing and the illustrations. How did that work for you?
Well, I was lucky enough to have Robin that we just met as my editor. And some of the things that she said that authors do as mistakes, I was guilty of. And part of that reason is because I'm a teacher. And so I was always teaching my students to really add adjectives and bring in a lot of imagery to their writing. And so as I was teaching that to my students, I also, kind of became what I was teaching them. I was adding a lot of imagery. And so my manuscript had more than what I needed to have a 500 or 600 word children's story. And so they actually said, this is a great, it could be even a young adult book if you want to make it longer, or you could pare it down and make it a children's book. So what would you like to do? And I said, no, I really would like it to be a picture book because in my mind, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted illustrations to look like, but I wasn't married to the illustration ideas. I just thought, well, this is kind of what I was thinking. And so Robin really helped me walk through the editing process because, as I said, I didn't know what that was going to look like. And I was terrified. And she was just so kind. And just so loving, and just came side by side with me and said, let's think about this. There were some things that she asked me to consider. She never said, you need to change this. She never said, she always said, let's consider this. I think it would be better for the audience. I think it would be better for the child. And she always said it in such a loving, caring way. But she was the professional and she knew what was best. So like she had said, I had made this book baby and, I had to remember that she was the one that had the best knowledge about what to do for my audience, which was for 3 to 8 year olds. So So I took a lot of the information she shared with me and was able to make some tweaks to it. And I would say I was just very, very happy with the outcome.
Well, and so some of the words that you started with ended up then as incorporated in the illustrations. Is that
Yes,
part of what
very
happened?
much so. Yeah, it became, some of the words that I had became the illustrations because, as in the publishing world, we say show, don't tell. So when I had adjectives that I wanted to say, those were adjectives that I had still written down. And when I met with my illustrator, I said, here are a lot of adjectives that I want to describe this scene. So I want you to incorporate it in your drawing, but the words won't necessarily be there. So then we went back and forth in our discussions about the illustrations about, if this was what I had intended in my words, then can we add it in the illustration? And then she had ideas as well that even made them even better. So yeah, it was a really great process. So I had to learn how to do more showing than telling, for sure.
And the illustrations are absolutely delightful. I mean,
I
they
love
really
them.
are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they really
yeah.
are beautiful. Yeah, I'm so happy with them, and uh, they just are something. I have some hanging in my house. I bought the originals, and I love them.
I'll I'll bet. So
Yeah.
so what has been the response to the book?
It's funny because, my audience was children, but what I have found is that people are buying it for their children. But what I found is a lot of people are loving it for themselves too, as adults. And a lot of adults have really taken on the phrase good one God once they realize what it really means to say good one God and give God the credit for all that he does in our lives and the beauty that he makes around us on a daily basis. And so it's just been really awesome to hear other people using that phrase. I see it on Facebook. I hear other people saying it, and it's really been like such a delight for me. And people have sent me pictures of their children and grandchildren reading the book with them. And honestly, that has been some of the best things that have touched my heart is seeing grandparents reading with their kids and grandkids,
Mm.
and I love that very much.
Well, it's just one big good one, God. Like, look at what he did.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
been
that.
fun.
So do you have plans to write another children's book?
Yeah, I actually, I had a few of them that I was working on before I even went to Redemption with Good One God. So I have a follow-up one that's almost completed, which would be Great One God. And
Ooh,
I have two others that are mostly written as well that don't really follow that same pattern, but
right.
I think they're going to be enjoyable for children. And so then I also have my suspense novel geared for adults that's coming out probably late summer too. So that's just a different genre, but I still
Yeah.
love. But my heart is with the children's books as well. I love it.
I love it. Well, I'm covered up where the chat is, so I'm
Mhm.
assuming that Carol's got a link in there. So if there's anybody watching today that does not have a copy of Good One God, you need to get one because it will bless you, and it's a great gift idea. So like buy 3 or 4 or 5 so you can give them as gifts. But Stacy, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you, Athena.
You bet, my friend. Okay, so we actually this month, our March special at Redemption Press is 20% off of illustrations. So if you have a children's book idea, it could just be in your head, or it could be something you've already got written. Either way, we can help you get that to the place where it is ready to print and in print, hardcover, soft cover, both, whatever. But we are giving a 20% off the illustrations if you get your project started in March. And Micah and BJ are the ones that can share all the details with you on that. And also, another little bonus for our March special is a premier ticket to our Greater Things She Writes for Him virtual conference, which is our third annual virtual conference since the pandemic hit in 2020. We had one that year, one in 2021, and this is our 2022 virtual conference. It's coming up in just a few weeks. I can't believe it is coming that soon. And also, we are going to do a author reception tour as part of the March special as well for any authors that sign on this month. So we also have a marketing special this month where we are giving 20% off of our author reception tour and digital magazine kind of combo. And we will have also a special appearance on the All Things podcast. And so we're going to be talking about that next week. But just as a reminder, we are about ready to wrap this puppy up. But I wanted to let you know that this Saturday, March 19th, from 9 to noon, we have a special pre-conference workshop that we are doing with Annette Reeder, Courtney Richard, and Bethany Jett. Annette is teaching why everyone should be on YouTube. She has like 250,000 YouTube followers. So she knows what she's talking about. Courtney Richard is going to talk about boss brand blogging. And our Bethany Jett is going to teach on ghostwriting as an additional craft, part of the craft that if you're really serious about wanting to do more writing and actually incorporate it into kind of an income producing stream, ghostwriting is a great way to do that. And so she's going to be teaching us about that. So here's the deal. If you have to sign up by Thursday for the Greater Things Conference if you would like to be part of this training for no extra charge. This is a special training, and we would love to have you be part of that. But you have only 2 more days. Carol, did I get that right? It's 2 more days. Yes. So she's going to put a link to where you can get signed up so that we can include you on the Zoom call on, there it is, she writes for him conference.com. And that's where you can get signed up before Thursday so you can be part of that event this Saturday. So that is all that I have for you all today. It has been great to be with you and to have, just children's books are just such a fun area for us to be involved in and to see what God does and uses with children's books that point to him. So if you know someone who's maybe talked about writing a children's book, or they're busy writing one, or they have one and they haven't known what to do with it, please share the link to this show with them so that they can get more information. And yeah, Stacy said, reach out to her if you have questions. She would love to just be a part of your journey. She's been such a delight to work with and to see her interact with our other authors and those who have a story to tell. So thank you all for being with us today. And I look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday, same time, 2:30 Pacific. And then also this Thursday, we'll have a couple of our faculty for the Greater Things with us for our Facebook Live. Carol and I will be back with you then, same time, 2:30 on Thursday. So God bless you all. Mwah. Bye for now.